Today, we'll be exploring communication skills, focusing on how to build clarity, empathy, and influence in professional settings. These are essential qualities that can transform the way we connect with others, collaborate, and lead. This presentation has been developed by Dr. Jawad Sebaali, and I'm excited to guide you through these key concepts that can significantly enhance your professional interactions. By the end of this training, you'll have a solid understanding of the core principles that make professional communication effective. We'll cover how to really listen actively and show empathy during interactions at work, which is crucial for building strong connections. You'll also learn how to structure your messages clearly, tailored to different audiences and communication channels. We'll equip you with strategies to handle difficult conversations with confidence so you can navigate challenging situations smoothly. Finally, you'll see how your communication choices can foster trust and create positive relationships across teams and different levels within your organization. Chapter 1 focuses on what communication actually is. Communication is much more than just exchanging information. It's about sharing meaning between people. This means not only the words you use, but also how you say them, your tone, your body language, and even the pauses or silence in between. At work, effective communication is crucial because it influences how decisions are made, how problems are resolved, and how people feel about their roles and their colleagues. One common mistake is to think of communication simply as sending information. The real challenge, and where many professional issues arise, is in making sure that the other person actually receives and understands the meaning you intended. This gap between what you say and what your listener interprets is where most misunderstandings begin. Communication always follows a cycle that involves four key stages: the sender, the message, the receiver, and feedback. The sender initiates the communication by encoding and sending the message. The receiver then decodes and interprets this message. However, at any of these points, things can go wrong: misunderstandings, misinterpretations, or even missing the message entirely. By understanding this process and anticipating where breakdowns are most likely to happen, we can take proactive steps to prevent confusion and ensure our messages are clear and effective. It's about being mindful of each stage to keep communication flowing smoothly. Communication often breaks down for a few key reasons, and understanding these can help us avoid misunderstandings. First, assumptions play a big role. We tend to assume that the other person already knows the context, but more often than not, they don't. Providing background information isn't a sign of weakness. Rather, it's a courtesy that helps prevent confusion and keeps everyone on the same page. Next is emotional noise. If either person is stressed, frustrated, or distracted, it becomes much harder to send and receive messages clearly. That's why managing your own emotional state before communicating is such an important professional skill. It sets the stage for effective dialogue. Finally, the choice of communication channel matters a lot. For example, discussing a sensitive topic over email can lead to ambiguity and misinterpretation. Matching your message to the right medium, whether in person, by phone, or in writing, can be just as important as the words you use. Together, these factors highlight why clear, thoughtful communication requires more than just speaking or writing. It takes awareness and intention. Chapter 2 focuses on active listening, which is a skill that many people tend to overlook. While most professionals think they are good listeners, research actually tells a different story. Active listening is about more than just hearing words. It's about fully concentrating on the speaker. It involves paying attention to their tone and body language, asking thoughtful questions that show you truly understand, and importantly, avoiding the temptation to start planning your response before they finish talking. This skill is essential for effective communication and building stronger connections. Let's explore the three levels of listening. First, at level 1, we have internal listening. This is when your focus is mostly on yourself, your own thoughts, reactions, or plans. You might hear the words being said, but you're not fully tuned into the speaker's true meaning. Next is level 2, focus listening. Here, your attention shifts entirely to the other person. You follow their words closely, notice their tone and emotions, and this is where real understanding begins to take shape. Finally, level 3 is global listening. In this state, you're aware of the entire environment, not just the words, but what's left unsaid, the energy in the room, and how everything connects. This highest level is crucial for navigating complex or sensitive conversations effectively. When practicing active listening during conversation, it's important to maintain comfortable eye contact and nod occasionally to show that you're engaged. Avoid interrupting the speaker and use brief verbal cues like "I see" or "go on" to encourage them to continue without breaking their flow. After the speaker finishes, take a moment to paraphrase what you heard before responding. For example, you might say, "What I understand is that you are concerned about the timeline, is that right?" This not only confirms your understanding, but also allows the speaker to clarify any misunderstandings before moving forward. These techniques help ensure clear communication and build trust. The quality of the questions we ask has a huge impact on the quality of the information we get in return. Open questions encourage people to explain their thoughts and provide more detail, which gives us a deeper understanding. Closed questions are useful when we need to confirm specific facts, but they don't encourage much elaboration. Leading questions, on the other hand, try to steer the other person toward a specific answer, and over time, this can really damage trust. Then there are clarifying questions, which are important because they help us make sure we really understood what was said before we take any action. In professional conversations, open and neutral questions are usually the most effective. For example, asking what happened from your perspective invites a full and honest response, while a question like, "You didn't think that was a problem, did you?" tends to limit the answer and might make people defensive. Here we have four key types of questions that serve different purposes in a conversation. First, open questions like, "What led you to that decision?" These encourage dialogue and help us understand the thinking behind someone's choices. Next are closed questions, such as, "Did you send a report?" These are useful when you need a straightforward yes or no answer, but they should be used sparingly so the conversation doesn't become too limited. Clarifying questions help prevent misunderstandings. For example, asking, "When you say soon, do you mean today or by end of week?" This ensures everyone is on the same page. Finally, probing questions like, "Can you walk me through what you tried before this?" help us uncover root causes and gain deeper insights into situation. Each type has its place, and using them effectively leads to clearer communication and better problem solving. Chapter 3 focuses on verbal communication and the importance of choosing your words with intention. The words we use at work do more than just convey information. They also reflect our confidence, how much we respect the listener, and how clear our thinking is. When language is vague, it can lead to confusion. On the other hand, using language that is too technical can leave people feeling excluded. And if your tone is too casual in a senior meeting, it might come across as poor judgment. So, adjusting your vocabulary and the level of formality to fit the context and the person you're speaking with is a key professional skill to master. When structuring what you say, start with a bottom line first. That means stating your main point or recommendation right at the beginning. This approach is especially effective because busy professionals tend to make decisions faster when they hear the conclusion up front. After that, provide supporting evidence by sharing 2 or 3 specific reasons or examples that justify your main point. Concrete examples are much more persuasive than vague or abstract claims. Finally, close with a clear call to action. Be direct about what you need and when you need it, because ambiguous endings often lead to no action at all. This structure helps keep your message clear, convincing, and actionable. When it comes to communicating with confidence, the language you choose plays a crucial role. Phrases like, "I might be wrong, but," or "Sorry, this is probably a stupid question," actually undermine your credibility before you even make your point. These expressions suggest self-doubt, and when you don't trust your own judgment, it becomes difficult for others to trust it as well. Instead, using confident language can make a big difference. Saying things like, "My recommendation is," or "I see this differently. Here is why," allows you to share the same ideas but with clarity and authority. Being confident isn't about being loud or aggressive. It's about being precise and showing conviction in what you say. This kind of direct, clear communication helps others understand and respect your perspective. Now, let's dive into Chapter 4, which focuses on nonverbal communication. Essentially, what your body is saying. Research in communication studies, including important work by Albert Mehrabian at UCLA, shows that nonverbal signals like posture, Facial expressions, eye contact, gestures, and even physical distance carry a huge part of the meaning in our interactions, especially when we're expressing emotions or attitudes. For example, you might say that you're engaged in conversation, but if your body language tells a different story, like slouching or looking at your phone, people will pick up on those nonverbal cues more than your words. This highlights just how powerful and critical nonverbal communication is in truly conveying your message. Let's talk about some key nonverbal signals and what they communicate. First, eye contact. Maintaining sustained and natural eye contact shows you're attentive and honest. On the other hand, avoiding eye contact might come across as disinterest or evasion, even if that's not your intention. Then there's posture. An open and upright posture conveys confidence and presence. If you slouch or turn away from the speaker, it often signals disengagement. Lastly, gestures. Using natural hand gestures can reinforce what you're saying and help your listeners understand your message better. However, too many or erratic gestures can be distracting in more formal settings. Keeping your hands still and controlled tends to be more effective. When we talk about voice, there are three key elements to consider: tone, pace, and silence. First, tone. It's how you express your emotions and attitude through your voice. A warm and even tone helps build trust with your audience, making them feel comfortable and engaged. On the other hand, a sharp or flat tone can push people away, no matter what you're actually saying. Next is pace. Speaking too quickly can make you seem anxious or impatient, while going too slow risks losing your listeners' interest. The best approach is a measured pace with natural variations that keep attention and show confidence. Finally, silence. Pausing deliberately after an important point gives your audience a moment to digest what you've said. Silence isn't a gap in communication. It's often its strongest tool. It allows your message to resonate and gives your listeners space to process. Together, these three aspects of your voice can greatly enhance how your message is received. Chapter 5 focuses on written communication in professional settings. One key point to remember is that written communication leaves a permanent record. Whether it's an email, a report, or a message on a collaboration platform, your words can be read, forwarded, and revisited long after you sent them. This means it's especially important to be careful and deliberate in how you write. The main principles apply no matter the format. Start by clearly stating your purpose. Be specific in your message, and always write with your reader in mind, not just for yourself. This approach helps ensure your communication is clear, effective, and professional. When writing professional emails, the subject line is crucial. It should clearly convey what the email is about and any action that is needed. For example, a subject like follow up on proposal, decision needed by Friday is specific and actionable, whereas something vague like checking in doesn't provide much information. Next, the opening line of your email should get straight to the point. State your purpose right away instead of building up to it over several paragraphs. This shows respect for your reader's time and ensures your message is clear from the start. Finally, your closing line needs to include a clear next step. Be explicit about who needs to take action and by when. If no action is required, make that clear too. Saying something like "no action required," this is for your awareness, closes the email professionally and sets the right expectations. When it comes to written communication, two common errors often arise: errors of tone and errors of clarity. Because written words don't come with vocal tone, facial expressions, or physical presence, messages can easily be misunderstood. For example, a note written quickly might seem curt or dismissive, even if that wasn't the intention. That's why it's important to pause and read sensitive messages from the reader's perspective before hitting send. Does it come across the way you want it to? On the clarity front, problems often stem from overlong sentences, excessive use of passive voice, jargon that the reader might not understand, and ambiguous pronouns. Take this sentence: "It was decided that the meeting should be rescheduled." It's unclear who made the decision or who will take action. To avoid confusion, it's best to use active, specific language so your message is clear and easy to follow. When we communicate across digital channels like email, instant messaging, video calls, and shared documents, it's important to recognize that each of these has its own set of norms and expectations. For example, what works well in a casual team chat might not be suitable in a formal report. Being aware of these differences and using each channel thoughtfully is a crucial part of professional communication today. This means responding promptly to messages, formatting longer communications clearly so they're easy to follow, and knowing when it's better to have a video call instead of getting stuck in a long email thread, especially if the topic is complex. By applying these principles, we can communicate more effectively and professionally in the digital world. In this chapter, we focus on emotional intelligence and how it plays a vital role in effective communication. One key aspect is self-awareness. By recognizing your own emotional triggers, you gain the ability to choose your response thoughtfully rather than just reacting impulsively. This is especially important when communicating under pressure, as it helps maintain clarity and control. Next, empathy is crucial. It's about understanding another person's perspective, not necessarily agreeing with them, but truly grasping what they're feeling and experiencing. This deeper understanding allows you to respond more accurately and with greater impact. Finally, self-regulation is essential in managing your emotions during challenging conversations. By controlling your reactions, you can prevent the situation from escalating and keep the dialogue productive. Sometimes, this means knowing when to pause the conversation and come back to it later with a clearer mindset. Together, these skills lay the foundation for more meaningful and effective communication. Empathy is an essential communication tool, especially in professional settings. It's important to understand that empathy doesn't mean you have to feel exactly what someone else feels. Rather, it's about recognizing their emotions and clearly communicating that recognition. As Brené Brown wisely puts it, empathy is about acknowledging what someone else is experiencing. In our work environment, showing empathy can be incredibly practical. When you first acknowledge a colleague's concerns before sharing your own views, it helps to lower their defenses. This makes it much more likely that they will listen to what you have to say. Simple phrases like, "I can see why that would be frustrating," or "that sounds like a challenging situation," don't mean you're giving up your position. Instead, they show that you're attentive and respectful of their feelings, which fosters better communication and collaboration. When communicating across different levels of an organization, it's important to tailor your approach depending on who you're speaking with. For example, when communicating with a senior leader, your message should be clear, concise, and focus on what they need to know to make decisions. On the other hand, when communicating downward to your team, it's essential to provide context and clear directions, while also allowing space for questions to ensure everyone understands. Communication with peers tends to be more collaborative, but can become competitive or territorial if good communication habits aren't maintained. Understanding these nuances helps in building effective communication at every level. When communicating with senior leaders, it's crucial to lead with your conclusion. These leaders are juggling many priorities, so start by clearly stating your main point or recommendation. Don't make them read through all the details just to figure out what you need from them. Next, anticipate the questions they might have. Before you present or send a message, think about the 2 or 3 key questions that are most likely to come up and address them up front. This shows you've really thought the issue through and helps prevent back and forth. Finally, be very clear about what you need from them. Whether the decision, approval, input, or information, state it directly. For example, saying, "I need your sign off on this by Thursday," is professional and helps respect everyone's time. This straightforward approach makes communication more efficient and effective. When communicating downward to your team, it's crucial to provide context before giving instructions. Simply telling someone what to do without explaining why limits their ability to adapt and make good decisions when unexpected situations arise. By sharing the reason behind a task, you help increase their sense of ownership and improve the quality of their work. Next, be clear about your expectations. Vague directions often lead to vague outcomes. When you assign work, make sure to find what success looks like. Set clear deadlines and specify who team members should approach with questions. Don't leave important details up to assumptions. Finally, always make space for questions. Encouraging your team to ask questions after you've given directions creates an environment of psychological safety. If someone feels hesitant to seek clarification, it can lead to mistakes that take more time to fix than simply asking up front would have. Creating this open dialogue ensures smoother, more effective teamwork. In this chapter, we focus on assertive communication, which means being direct without coming across as aggressive. Assertiveness is all about clearly and respectfully expressing your needs, opinions, and boundaries. It's important to find the middle ground, avoiding both aggressive behavior that can harm relationships and passive behavior that leads to being overlooked. Many people mistakenly confuse assertiveness with aggression, but true assertive communication allows you to stand your ground firmly while maintaining respect for others. Luckily, this is a skill anyone can develop with practice. On this slide, we're focusing on the three communication styles, starting with assertive communication. It's important to understand that assertive communication isn't about trying to win an argument or overpower someone else. Instead, it's about expressing your thoughts and feelings clearly and confidently while maintaining respect for the other person. This approach helps ensure that your perspective is heard without damaging the relationship. When used effectively, assertive communication leads to the best long-term outcomes in professional settings because it fosters mutual respect and understanding. When expressing a boundary assertively, it's helpful to follow a clear and respectful structure. Start with a three-part sentence. First, describe a situation factually. Stick to the facts without adding emotion or blame. Next, explain how it impacts you or your work, so the other person understands why it matters. Finally, make a specific request about what you would like to happen differently. Keep each part brief and neutral. For example, you might say, "When I receive meeting invitations with less than 24 hours notice, I am not able to prepare adequately. Going forward, could we agree on a minimum notice period?" This way, you're addressing the problem directly but without attacking anyone, which helps create a positive dialogue and increases the chances of getting the outcome you want. Chapter 8 focuses on handling difficult conversations. Every professional faces moments they'd rather avoid, whether it's delivering critical feedback, addressing conflicts, raising concerns with someone senior, or saying no to a request. Avoiding these conversations might seem easier, but it doesn't solve the problem. In fact, it lets the issue grow unchecked. Being able to handle these tough conversations effectively is one of the most valuable communication skills you could develop in any workplace. It helps maintain clarity, build trust, and resolve issues before they escalate. When preparing for a difficult conversation, the first step is to clarify your intent. Be honest with yourself about what you want to achieve. Are you hoping to resolve the issue or just express your frustration? Only if your goal is to find a solution will the conversation be productive. Next, it's important to separate facts from interpretations. Stick to what actually happened, not the conclusions you've drawn. For example, saying, "You were 20 minutes late to the client meeting," is sticking to the facts, while saying, "You don't respect my time," is an interpretation. Building the conversation on facts helps keep it grounded and less confrontational. Then, anticipate the other person's perspective. Think about how they might experience the conversation and what concerns they could have. Preparing for their viewpoint helps you stay calm and respond thoughtfully instead of being caught off guard. Finally, choose the right time and place. Make sure at a private setting where both parties feel comfortable and calm, and set aside enough time to work through the issue thoroughly. Avoid rushed or public conversations, because those often lead to more tension rather than resolution. When you're in the middle of a conversation and want to keep it productive, it's important to start with genuine curiosity. Begin by inviting the other person's perspective before sharing your own. For example, you might say, "I want to talk about what happened in the meeting. Can you walk me through your experience?" This approach helps prevent the conversation from turning into a one-sided accusation and opens the door for honest dialogue. Next, focus on staying in the present moment of the conversation. Avoid bringing up past grievances or unrelated issues. When the discussion jumps around multiple incidents, it can quickly become overwhelming and trigger defensiveness instead of helping you find a resolution. Finally, it's okay to acknowledge your emotions, but do so without using them as a weapon. If you're feeling frustrated or concerned, express that calmly and directly. Saying something like, "I felt concerned when I heard this because it affects the whole team," shares your feelings clearly and respectfully, fostering understanding rather than conflict. Chapter 9 focuses on the crucial topic of giving and receiving feedback. Feedback is one of the most important forms of communication within any organization. When done effectively, it can accelerate personal and professional growth, build trust among team members, and enhance overall performance. However, when feedback is handled poorly, it can have the opposite effect, damaging confidence, creating resentment, and shutting down open and honest communication. It's important to understand that both giving and receiving feedback are skills that require conscious effort and deliberate practice. Contrary to popular belief, these skills don't come naturally to most people, and developing them takes time and intention. When giving feedback that truly lands, there are three key steps to keep in mind. First, be specific. Instead of making a general statement like, your report was unclear, focus on exact behavior you observed. For example, you might say, the second section of your report did not explain the assumptions behind the numbers. This makes your feedback concrete and easier to understand. Second, describe the impact of that behavior. Explain why it matters. For instance, you could say, because the assumptions were not explained, the client came back with multiple questions that delayed the decision. This helps connect the behavior to real consequences, making the feedback more meaningful. Finally, make a clear request. End your feedback by telling the person what you'd like to see change. You might say, going forward, could you add a brief explanation of your assumptions before the data? This provides a clear, actionable step they can take to improve. Following these 3 points will make your feedback constructive and effective. When receiving feedback, it's important to avoid becoming defensive. Defensiveness often shows up in ways like immediately explaining yourself, turning the critique back on the person giving feedback, dismissing their comments as irrelevant, or simply going silent. These reactions signal that you're not truly listening, and they close the door on valuable insights that can help you improve. On the other hand, openness means fully listening before you respond. It involves asking clarifying questions to ensure you understand concern clearly, and thanking the person for sharing their perspective, whether or not you agree with it. After that, take some time to reflect on the feedback and decide if and how you want to act on it. Remember, you don't have to agree with every comment, but you do need to listen carefully and thoughtfully first. Chapter 10 focuses on presenting ideas with clarity and confidence. Whether you're speaking to a small group of 3 colleagues or a larger audience of 30, the core principles remain the same. Your listeners need to grasp not just what you're saying, but also why it matters to them personally. It's equally important that they understand what actions or decisions they should take based on the information you present. Many presentations fall short not because the content is flawed, but because these key points aren't clearly communicated. Remember, having knowledge alone is enough. The way you structure and deliver your message is what truly connects with your audience. When structuring a presentation, it's important to focus on 3 main parts: the opening, the body, and the closing. For the opening, start by explaining why the topic matters to your audience specifically, not just why it matters to you. This connection to their situation grabs their attention right away and makes your presentation relevant to them. In the body, organize your main points in a clear, logical way. You could move from the most important ideas to the supporting details, or follow a problem to solution path. One key tip here is to avoid overwhelming your audience with too much information. Including everything you know doesn't make your presentation better. In fact, it can make it harder to follow. Finally, in your closing, be sure to clearly restate your main point and specify what action or decision you want your audience to take. A strong closing is what sticks in people's minds, so don't leave any doubt about what comes next. This helps ensure your message has a lasting impact. Nervousness before a presentation actually feels a lot like excitement because physiologically they're the same. The adrenaline your body releases is identical in both cases. The difference lies in how you interpret that feeling. If you reframe "I am nervous" into "I am ready," you're not just pretending. You're using a proven psychological technique supported by research from experts like Allison Wood Brooks at Harvard Business School. To manage those nerves, preparation is key. Memorize your first 3 sentences because most anxiety peaks in the first 30 seconds. Once you get through that, your body starts to relax. So, invest extra time in practicing your opening. It really pays off. Another important technique is deliberate breathing. Taking slow, Control breaths right before you start speaking calms your body's anxiety response and helps you slow down your speech. This not only reduces your nervous symptoms, but also makes you come across as more confident and composed to your audience. Chapter 11 focuses on cross-cultural communication, which is increasingly important in today's professional environments. We often work alongside people from a wide range of cultural, linguistic, and generational backgrounds. This diversity means that the way you communicate, what feels natural and appropriate to you, might be very different for a colleague from another culture. Things like how direct you are, the level of formality you use, how you view hierarchy, and even how silent is handled in conversations can vary greatly. The key here isn't to rely on stereotypes, but to stay flexible and attentive, adapting your communication style so that you can connect effectively across these differences. Here we're looking at the difference between high context and low context communication cultures. It's important to understand that neither style is better than the other. Both work well in their specific settings. The real skill in professional communication is being able to recognize which style your counterpart uses. Once you know that, you can adapt your approach to communicate more effectively. The key is to do this without sacrificing your own clarity or authenticity, ensuring your message is clear and genuine no matter the context. When engaging in cross-cultural communication, it's important to develop practical habits that help avoid misunderstandings. First, observe before concluding. If you encounter a communication style that's unfamiliar, take time to watch and listen before making any judgments. For instance, a colleague who communicates indirectly might not be trying to avoid the issue. They could simply be following different professional norms. Next, ask rather than assume. If you're unsure whether your message was understood as you intended, don't hesitate to check in, saying something like, "I want to make sure I've explained this clearly. Does this make sense from your perspective?" Is both respectful and effective. Finally, avoid idioms and local references. Expressions that are common in one culture can be confusing or meaningless in another. Using plain, direct language is especially important in cross-cultural written communication, where translations can add another layer of complexity. These habits can greatly improve clarity and foster better understanding across cultures. Chapter 12 focuses on persuasive communication, a vital skill for any professional. Persuasion isn't about manipulation. Rather, it's the art of presenting your ideas in a way that truly convinces others. You do this by understanding their concerns, offering credible evidence, and linking your argument to what matters most to them. Whether you're asking for budget approval, suggesting a change, or supporting your team, the way you communicate your case heavily influences your chances of success. Mastering this skill can make all the difference in achieving your goals. When it comes to persuasion, there are three fundamental foundations we need to focus on. First is credibility. People are persuaded by those they trust and respect. Your track record, how well you prepare, and the accuracy of your claims all play a huge role in establishing that trust even before your argument begins. Next is connection. To truly move your audience, your argument needs to resonate with what they care about most. So, it's important to understand your audience and frame your message in a way that aligns with their values and priorities. Finally, logic is essential. A clear, well-reasoned argument supported by specific evidence carries much more weight than enthusiasm alone. It's also smart to address the most likely objections up front rather than waiting for them to be raised. Together, these three elements, credibility, connection, and logic, form the backbone of effective persuasion. Let's take a closer look at Pixar Animation Studios and how they build a culture centered on candid communication. One of their key practices is something called the Brain Trust, which is essentially a group of senior creatives who come together regularly to give open and honest feedback on films that are still in development. What's unique about these sessions is the guiding principle that feedback should be descriptive rather than prescriptive. That means instead of telling the director exactly how to fix a problem, the team describes what isn't working in the film. This approach empowers the director to maintain full decision-making authority while still benefiting from honest critiques. This setup is powerful because it separates honest assessment from the usual hierarchical pressures you might see in other organizations. It allows Pixar to spot and tackle critical issues early in the production process, rather than letting problems fester or go unaddressed. By fostering an environment where candid communication is the norm, Pixar has been able to consistently push creative boundaries while maintaining high-quality storytelling. Pixar's brain trust model offers an insightful lesson about communication that's highly relevant to any organization. The key idea here is that it separates the authority to identify problems from the authority to solve them. This means anyone in the group can openly point out what isn't working without the pressure of having to come up with a solution on the spot. By doing this, it lowers the barrier for honest, open communication, making it easier for people to speak up. For you, this principle has a very practical application. When you receive critical feedback, you don't have to jump into defense mode or feel pressured to fix things immediately. Similarly, when you're the one giving feedback, your role is to clearly describe what you've noticed rather than telling someone exactly how to fix it. By keeping observation and solution separate, feedback becomes less threatening and much more effective, creating a safer space where everyone benefits. Chapter 13 focuses on managing conflict through communication. It's important to understand that conflict in professional settings isn't a sign of dysfunction. In fact, it shows that people care about the outcomes and have varying perspectives on how to achieve them. The real issue isn't the disagreement itself, but rather how we communicate around it. When conflict is handled with avoidance, escalation, or passive-aggressive behavior, it harms teams and their dynamics. On the other hand, addressing conflict through honest, structured, and respectful dialogue leads to better decision-making and stronger working relationships. This approach transforms conflict into an opportunity for growth and collaboration. When it comes to handling conflict, there are four main approaches, but I want to focus on collaborative approach. This method really stands out because it demands a high level of communication skill. Unlike other approaches that might just sweep issues under the rug or create winners and losers, collaboration aims to find a solution that satisfies everyone involved. The key benefit here is that it resolves conflicts without causing lasting harm to relationships or the overall team dynamic. So, it's not just about solving the immediate problem, but also about maintaining trust and cooperation for the future. This makes it the most effective and constructive way to handle disagreements. When it comes to de-escalating conflict, the language we choose plays a crucial role. First, it's important to describe a situation rather than judge it. For example, saying, "I noticed a deadline was missed," is far more effective than saying, "You're irresponsible." Descriptive language keeps the conversation open, while judgmental language tends to shut it down and makes people defensive. Next, using I statements helps to express our feelings without blaming others. Instead of saying, "You ignored me," try saying, "I felt concerned when I did not receive a response." This way, the focus stays on how the behavior impacted you, rather than assuming negative intent. Finally, it's helpful to focus on interests, not positions. Instead of debating competing viewpoints, ask questions like, "What do you need from the situation?" This approach uncovers the underlying needs behind the conflict and often reveals more possibilities for mutual resolution than you might have expected. By keeping these strategies in mind, we can navigate conflicts more thoughtfully and constructively. As we wrap up, let's review the key learning points from this training. First, effective communication is not something you're born with, but a set of skills you can learn and practice. Throughout this course, we've explored principles that help make your communication clear, credible, and constructive in professional settings. One of the most important points is to listen before you speak. Attentive listening not only helps you gather better information, but also builds stronger relationships, often more effectively than speaking alone. Next, structure is essential for clarity. Always lead with your main point, back it up with specific evidence, and finish with a clear request or defined next step. This approach keeps your message focused and easy to follow. Nonverbal signals also play a critical role. Your body language, tone of voice, and speaking pace convey just as much meaning as your words. It's important to align these deliberately with the message you want to send. Finally, difficult conversations require proper preparation. Avoiding these talks doesn't help. Instead, preparing thoughtfully is what leads to productive discussions and helps preserve relationships. Keeping these points in mind will greatly enhance your communication skills moving forward. When it comes to developing strong communication skills, the key is to practice one skill at a time. Try to improve everything all at once can be overwhelming and less effective. Instead, focus on one area, like active listening, using assertive language, or organizing your writing, and work on it consistently for 2 to 4 weeks before moving on to the next skill. Another important aspect is to seek regular feedback. Don't hesitate to ask trusted colleagues for honest and specific observations about your communication. General requests for feedback can be vague, so be clear about what exactly you want to improve or learn about. Finally, keep learning. Communication research is always evolving, so staying updated through reading, reflecting, and ongoing practice is what truly separates great communicators from those who stop at the basics. This continuous growth is essential to becoming genuinely skilled in your interactions. Thank you for taking the time to engage with this training. Developing genuine communication skills, those that build trust, help resolve conflicts, and keep work moving forward, requires ongoing effort and dedication. Your participation today shows that you recognize the importance of this process. I hope you leave with at least one practical idea you can put into action right away, as well as a clearer understanding of where to focus your growth as a communicator. Remember, strong communication genuinely transforms how people experience working with you, making it a valuable investment. If you want to continue building these skills, I highly recommend the book Difficult Conversations by Stone, Patton, and Heen. It's an excellent resource for navigating professional communication and conflict with confidence. Here are the key references that underpin the concepts and research discussed throughout this training. The core texts include Creativity Incorporated by Catmull and Wallace, which explores how to overcome unseen barriers to inspiration. Then there's Difficult Conversation by Stone, Patton, and Heen, which provides valuable strategies for discussing what really matters in challenging situations. Morabian Silent Messages is also cited, but with an important note that his findings specifically relate to communications of feelings and attitudes, not all types of communication. On the research side, we reference Brooks' 2014 study on reappraising pre-performance anxiety as excitement, which offers insight into managing nervous energy. Brown's The Gift of Imperfection provides a definition of empathy used in this training, emphasizing the human connection aspect. Lastly, the Thomas Skillman Conflict Mode Instrument, developed by Thomas and Killman, serves as a conceptual foundation for understanding different conflict approaches. It's worth mentioning that no regional professional sources specific to this topic were confirmed at the time of writing. For localized editions of this training, consulting National HR or Management Development Association for relevant research is recommended to ensure the content is contextually appropriate. Please note that this content is designed solely for training purposes and internal use. While we've made every effort to ensure accuracy, there may still be errors or omissions. The author does not take responsibility for any decisions or actions taken based on this information. It's important to apply your own professional judgment when using the strategies or techniques discussed here. Also, this presentation is not a replacement for expert legal or professional advice. For complex issues, always consult a qualified specialist. Keep these points in mind to use this material responsibly and effectively.